Hey, what's going on, everyone? Yo, what's up, man? How you doing today? Welcome back to another episode. Hey, yo, it's time to have a conversation. And what I'm about to say just might sting a tad bit. See, your brand isn't being ignored. And that's what a lot of people don't understand because a lot of people are on this kick now that they want to build a brand. You know, start with your brand awareness, right? But your brand is not being ignored. Your freaking brand is just being skipped. Not because you're not talented, not because you're not working harder than the rest of everybody else out here, not because you don't have something real that you want to offer to your audience. No, that's not why. It's because when somebody lands on your page, watches your content, or even listens to your show, they can't figure out in the first 3 to 5 seconds what you do, who you help, and why it matters for them. You see, today's economy, confusion doesn't get a second chance. If you haven't paid attention so far, once somebody's confused, they out of here. They don't come back. They don't stop back through unless somebody says, hey, man, check this out. This is interesting. And then they go back and forth for a minute. No, they're not coming back. They don't give you the benefit of the doubt. They move on to somebody else who is very clear, which, in other words, they are crystal clear about what they do, who they are, and why it matters. Now, here's what the part that the folk that you're dealing with are not telling you. And it's very simple. You don't have a growth problem. What you have is you have a clarity problem. You see, most podcasters think they need more content, more episodes. They need more platforms. They need more frequency. And they grind themselves into a ground trying to be everywhere. And yet nothing has even changed. It's not your content. They are confused. If you look at some of your top podcasts out here, now I know we talk about not comparing ourselves to other other platforms, right? If you're a small podcast, you're not competing with the podcast like All the Smoke, anything like that. The Pivot, the Joe Rogan show. You're not going to compete with those. And so we have to figure out why we're trying to compete with them. Why are we trying to look like them, sound like them, act like them? Man, shout out to each one of those cats, man. I have the utmost respect for what Matt Barnes is doing, him and Steven Jackson over at the All the Smoke podcast. I really tapped into it one weekend and I really dig what they're doing. Now, we have a real issue that we need to figure out. And one of the issues that people with small podcasts tend to not understand is real volume is not the issue. It's the it was understanding. Today, we're going to break down exactly 3 frameworks that I use, which is my magnetic messaging framework. Listen, it's the same system that each large podcast is using. After doing mega research and finding out, this is exactly what they do. They have a magnetic message, and they use this message to draw in their potential clients. And what I mean by their potential clients is their followers. See, they have sponsorships. They truly have sponsorships. And I just read something that the other day, matter of fact, it was today. And we're going to talk about this in a YouTube video outside of the podcast, but I gain more respect for All the Smoke than a lot of people is going to give them credit for. Some people are going to say they was crazy. I seen what they seen. Okay. And so we're going to break down that messaging framework. We're going to talk about how to turn your podcast into a client generating machine. We're going to cut through the noise. We're going to speak directly to the people so you can understand how to serve your audience better starting today. Let's get it.
Welcome to Podcast for Profit, the show where podcasters become CEOs. I'm your host, Tony Porter, and every week I'm giving you the strategy, systems, and game you need to grow your audience, monetize your message, and build a 7-figure podcast business. No fluff, no cap, just real results. Let's get into it.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Mr. Anthony Porter. In today's episode, we welcoming you to the Podcast for Profits, the show where we cut through the chase to get rid of all the no fluff, the no BS, and we turn conversations into currency. Now, here's the real talk. If you are a budding podcast host, consultant, or even just a regular person, welcome. Welcome to the show. we are about to get into something that we need to really discuss, and that is exactly the three-part message, the three-part framework called the magnetic messaging framework. Okay. So let's jump into that, man. So before I give you the framework, I need you to understand something that is fun, the fundamentals. Clarity is not about doubling down. Should I say, clarity is not about dumbing down things. All right. It's about, sharpening things up. Iron sharpens iron. All right. So the podcasters and coaches who are, constantly um, and consistently getting those major clients, they're not necessarily the most skilled in the room. So you have to understand that they're not always the most experienced. What they are the ones who can communicate exactly what they do so precisely that the right person hears it and immediately thinks, that's for me. That's exactly what I need to hear. That's the game. That's the right move for me right now. Okay. So if you're posting content, showing up consistently, dropping value, but the inquiries are not coming through for you, your messaging is in the gap. And now it's time for us to take the hood off and go ahead and fix it. So what we need to do right now is we need to get into this. Okay. So let's talk about what we need to do, starting with this first point. Point number one is we need to nail the one person. And that's a specific problem. See, people make a lot of mistakes. And here's the mistake that most podcasters make. They try to speak to everyone. I help entrepreneurs. I help people who want to grow. I help coaches build their business. That sounds robotic. That sounds like you're trying to build a multi-personality ideal client. But that's not what your ideal client wants to hear. Not because it's wrong. It's not specific enough to feel like it's for them. See, a lot of people want to talk to the masses. If you pay attention, all right, so again, let's go back to a couple podcasts. Let's go to The Pivot Talk Sports, right? So they bring in a lot of sports people. At first, it was specifically about football. Then they got into a little basketball. Now they've migrated into football, little pro wrestling. They're still talking sports. So they're talking to people who love sports, right? All the Smoke podcasts. Now, all the Smoke podcasts, they're sports figures, but they're going to get into more than just sports. I love the interview that Steven Jackson did when he talked about he didn't want to be in the conversation with Kamala Harris. He didn't. And you got to respect, you have to respect him for his views. For those who don't know, Steven Jackson's cousin was George Floyd. So it hit different for him to stand up for his family than it hit different for a lot of us who was out there protesting. In his case, he had George Floyd. In our case, in my city, we had Breonna Taylor. Okay. But you can't just leave out the other folk who have been murdered. We're not just talking black. And that's what the All the Smoke podcast is about. They hit you with everything. So, like I said, there's nothing wrong with what you do. You have to be specific. All right. So think about it this way. If you walk into a room, a crowded room, and someone yelled, "Hey, entrepreneur," half the room might turn around. But if someone yelled at your name, you spin around immediately. You have to target that one specific person, that one specific niche, that one specific ideal client. All right. And that's what makes being specific the best move. See, it calls out people by name, metaphorically. Here's the fix. If you want to answer this one question right now, answer it this way. Who is the one person my podcast was built for? My podcast is built for aspiring podcasters. And what is the one problem I can help them solve? Not 5 people, one person, not 3 problems, just one. Now, see, sometimes you will hear somebody say, I help coaches who are posting content but not getting clients to build a podcast-driven lead generation system that brings them 3 to 5 clients, inquiries every single month. See, here's the thing. You have to understand this. And this is where a lot of people get caught up. A coach can help you. get to a point, but you got to put in the work. But in order for you to put in the work, you got to find somebody that you trust. So that sentence, that's a sentence someone reads and says, that's for me. Well, guess whose sentence that is? That's my sentence. We're helping aspiring podcasters who are posting content, coaches, consultants, but we use it in 3 different ways. So one, I might say I help coaches. I might say I help aspiring podcasters. We are helping you generate 3 to 5 client and qualified inquiries every month. It's your job to close them. And this is where there's a lot of things that are being misconstrued out here right now. All right. There's a lot of people who are in trouble because they're making claims, and these claims are turning out to be a tad bit false. So if your positioning sounds like a general announcement, you're speaking to nobody. All right. So you don't want to be in those false claims situations. You want to speak to one person, and you want to make sure that that one person that you're speaking to is that one person that generally will help you get to that point. All right. So again, you don't want to if you're positioning yourself, to sound, and it sounds like a general announcement, you're speaking to nobody. Get specific, name the pain, own the niche. All right. Because that's where the truth lies. The riches are in the niches, and the clients want the clarity. So if they feel like you are really clear to them, sky's the limits. All right. Now, point number 2, we need to talk about, we have to lead with the transformation. So now you've got your one person. Now the question is, what are you actually saying to them? Most podcasters lead with information. Here's the top 5 tips. Here are 3 strategies. Here's what I learned this week. And the thing of it is I'm not saying that's wrong. What I'm going to tell you is this: if you want your podcast to generate clients, you can't just inform them. You have to transform them. Now, there's a major difference, and here it is right here. Okay. Information tells you what. Transformation shows you what matters and what's possible on the other side. Now, everybody should know that the famous saying is the grass is greener. The grass is not always greener on the other side. And that is absolutely true. But when you produce an episode, you can't just teach a lesson. You have to move someone where they are to where they want to be. And you have to be able to do that with inside 25 to 30 minutes. Every episode is a micro transformation. Now, you got to have a content shift. So here's one for you. Stop leading with the tip. Start leading with the outcome. All right. So you want to give them the outcome. Don't say, today I'm going to share 3 ways to improve your podcast. Yeah. Okay. That's perfect. Sounds good, right? That's what everybody wants to hear. But here's what you probably should be saying. At the end of the episode, you're going to know exactly why your podcast isn't bringing in the clients, and the 3 moves that would change that. See, one person opens with a tactic, the other person opens with a promise. See, your listeners don't care about the framework. What they care about is what framework does for them. Lead with that always, because the moment someone hears your episode and thinks, that person, man, they get my problem, they're already one step closer to becoming a client when they get to that point, man. And that's exactly what you want. You want that person to be one step closer to becoming that client. So that leads us into the next point, and that is build content, or should I say build a content to client pathway. Now, we've discussed a whole lot, right? But here's what most people leave the money that's sitting on the table. Listen, I'm not asking you for no bread. What I'm going to say to you is this. If you are a podcaster, your goal is, most people want to get sponsorships, partnerships, brand deals. Nobody's monetizing. We're leaving money on the table. See, people put out great content people listening to. People engage. People say, oh, great episode in the comments. But guess what they don't do? They don't have nothing else to do. No inquiries, no DMs, no bookies, no revenue. So ask yourself why. because there's no pathway. There's no bridge between free content and paid content. There's none whatsoever. And this is what we call the content to client pathway. And it's the backbone of what I teach inside every single course, every single podcast, every single YouTube video. It's a pathway. Every episode you record should point to one thing, one next step, one clear action that moves a warm listener into your world. Right now, I just want you to grab the blueprint. I want you to see. I want you to get a feel for what everything is. That's what I want you to do. All right. See, every episode I record sends a listener there. Every video I record, every short, whatever, is sending you now to that. And that's my CTA, one destination, consistently. The mistake is stacking CTAs. Subscribe and leave a review. Follow me on Instagram. Download my guide. Book a call. And join my newsletter. That right there will burn somebody's eyelids out, the listeners out, all of that. Pick one, make it clear, repeat it in every episode. Pick one, make it clear, repeat it in every video. Pick one, repeat it, make it clear in every post, because the power isn't in one episode. The power is in the system. See, a lot of people think, and here's what happens. A lot of people starting to see these courses and they're like, man, one course is going to get me there. No, it's not. I mean, one course can help you get there, but you still got to put in work. And that's where everybody falls short. When you see people out here talking about, that's a scam. People are not making money because they're not putting in the work. You have to put in work. You have to. And that's the same with podcasting. People think they're going to record 3 to 5 episodes and all of a sudden they got $1 million. They don't. You know why? It takes more than 50 to be recognized. All right. And once you start building and building and building, so you got to understand your first year and a half might be just pure working. You might get a couple friends that invite you to come and speak. They might pay you $50 to $100. Take it. You know why? Because that's the perfect thing to do. You're getting yourself out there. A lot of people think branding yourself is having your logo and you paste it everywhere. They still don't know who you are because they haven't never had a conversation with you. So here's what I want you to hear right now. The gap between where you are and where you want to be is not work ethic. It's not consistency. It's not talent. It's not even time. It's clarity. Be clear. When you get crystal clear on who you serve, when you lead every episode with a transformation instead of a tactic, and when you build a system that moves listeners in your world on autopilot, everything seems to change. The inquiries will come, man. Those 3 to 5 client qualified inquiries, they will come. You just got to put in the work. That's how you got to do it. You got to work. And those conversations will get warmer. Those clients, those shows, everything, they'll start showing up. But it's not because you hustled harder, but because you built smarter. I've seen 1,000 coaches online. There's one right now. I'm not going to say his name. He's been hustling for the last 5 years. He's still in the same space. He's talking to the masses, but he's not specific enough to tell you exactly who he's really talking to. When he does that, he'll be fine because I kind of follow things that he do, and he's got great content. He's got great messaging. He's got great everything. He just has no clarity. And when you have clarity, the message is right, the people come, everything will be fine for you, all right? And that's the thing. You already have what it takes to win the game. You just have to you have the story, you have the expertise, you have the experience. What you need now is the system to translate it. You need that framework. You need that pathway. You need that blueprint. You feel me? You need that. And that's exactly what I'm going to hand to you. All right. So this is non-negotiable. Script word for word. If this episode hit home, if you heard something today that made you think, that's exactly what I've been stuck trying to do, then I want to give you exactly what you need to do. Grab the client generating podcast blueprint. I'm not selling you nothing. It's for coaches, consultants, service providers, and aspiring podcasters who are done playing the small pocket podcast game. All right. It's a step-by-step blueprint that walks you through exactly how you position your show, craft your message, and set up your content system that we just talked about. It's free. All right. It's going to be in the show notes, the description below. Grab it. That's it. One word, Blueprint 26. If you're on Instagram, Blueprint 26. If you're on Instagram, grab it. All right. And I'll send you the link directly. Man, that's it for me, man. Let's get some clients. Let's keep doing what we do. And I'm going to see you in the next episode. We out of here. Peace.
Thanks for tuning in to Podcast for Profit. If you got value today, share this episode with a creator who's ready to level up. And make sure you hit follow so you never miss the moves we're making. If you're serious about turning your podcast into a business, tap the link in the show notes to join the Solo Empire